ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for tuning in to Week 3 recap presented by FTFN Network. My name is Matthew Hadawani, lead NFL writer at FTFNnetwork.com, and joined as me, as always, is Nick Gardner. And Nick, how are you feeling after last night's game, buddy?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. It was not pretty to watch. There's a lot of things I could get into that I'm not going to get into currently. It was tough. I picked it as my most entertaining game of the week last week, and it did not live up to the standing. It was probably the most hyped game of the year so far, but Lamar did not hold up his end of the bargain. So, yeah, it was tough.
When the season started, I did not think that out of our two teams that mine would be the one that would be 3-0. And I remember texting you during the Bills game because you were watching it as well too, and I said, "Is this what it's like actually liking a team that's kind of good at football?"
And then right after you texted me that, the LA Rams came back and almost won that game. So
yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little later. I had to go switch jerseys just because I was so superstitious. But yeah, we got some news, we got some stories to get to, we got some recaps to get to. Obviously, our hero on zero picks and all that good stuff. So it looks like Earl Thomas may have a new landing spot as he is scheduled to work out with the Houston Texans. This is one thing about the NFL is that you are never bigger than the game. Mm-hmm. You could be an all-pro, you could be a Pro Bowl safety, go to the free agent market, and nobody is going to even look at you. It seems that's what happened with Earl Thomas. I mean, we don't really know what happened in Baltimore, other than the fact that he had that blowout during practice. But Nick, I want to ask you this question here: If you get labeled a distraction, mm-hmm. are your chances to play for another team almost as good as gone?
Not almost as good as gone, but they're definitely hampered. And like you said, in the NFL, there have been so many cases of talented players not getting any more chances in the NFL because of their personality. And like you said, nobody's bigger than the game. And in the NBA, guys can have an attitude and act a certain way and, be a little bit cocky and whatnot. But if they're talented enough, they will still get on the court, still get minutes. And if they're really good, still be a superstar and all that kind of stuff. Right. In the NFL, there is pretty much a zero tolerance for that because nobody is bigger than the game. And in the NFL, the sum of your parts is more important than one piece. Ultimate team. So if that player, for this example, Earl Thomas, is I don't want to use the word cancer in the locker room because that's so vague and used all the time. But if he is that kind of person where there's a lot of people that don't really like him and they're kind of looking at the GM and head coach and stuff like, why is this guy still in our locker room? Why is he still beside us? Like he thinks he's better than all of us. Because there was a few examples, and we don't know everything that happened, but I remember hearing a report where one time Earl Thomas was late for a meeting, and meetings in the NFL are sacred. Like you cannot be late for a meeting. They are important. And he was late because he had to get his car washed or something like that. Yeah. And it's just little things like that that'll really tick guys off. And if that's the type of guy that you come across as, and that's the type of guy that ultimately you are, then I think your chances are definitely hampered.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. The locker room is a sacred place, and you only have so many days to really install a game plan going up against a bunch of, muscle-bound linebackers and running backs who are trying to take your head off. So if you miss one of those, that's like missing a week worth of school almost.
Yeah,
they are crucial.
Yeah.
And speaking of muscle-bound defensive players, Chris Carson was the target of Tristan Hill of the Dallas Cowboys after he was gator rolled late in the Seahawks game, and it looks like Tristan Hill isn't going to be suspended, but he is going to be fined. Very, very questionable decision on the league's part there. We've seen how far leaps and bounds they've come with player safety, taking injuries super serious, particularly head injuries. But do you think that this player, Tristan Hill, is going to have I don't want to say a bounty on his head, but he'll definitely get a couple extra pops from week to week now.
Just because Tristan Hill is, frankly, to be completely honest, I've never even heard of this guy before this incident. And if you're not familiar with the situation, obviously the Seahawks and Cowboys played on Sunday. And KJ Wright, the linebacker for the Seahawks, I believe it was KJ Wright, tweeted out the video that Chris Carson got hurt on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was that incident where Tristan Hill was kind of like in the bottom of the pile and had taken down Chris Carson near the line of scrimmage. And like Matt said, literally gator rolled his leg.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure that's what ended up in Chris Carson's knee sprain.
It looked like he was trying to twist Carson's kneecap out of his leg.
It was bad. Like he had his ankle and he essentially just rolled with it. And yeah, it was disgusting. There's no place in the game for that at all. I'm honestly surprised the league isn't doing anything more than that because that is so blatantly obvious.
Do you think
there are 3 or 4 guys on top of Chris Carson already, so it's not like he was anywhere close to not being down. The whistle had probably been blown. Like there's just a lot of nasty stuff that can happen in the bottom of a pile, and you don't want any injuries to come from that. And now that Chris Carson's out for a couple weeks, I don't know how Tristan Hill hasn't been suspended yet. It's a little bit embarrassing, to be frank with you.
I agree with that. And another point too is, do you think Mike McCarthy would tolerate this type of stuff? Like he seems to be a very like this is how I run my ship type of thing. I don't have any room for players who do this kind of stuff. Any distractions really.
I'm sure they had a conversation about it. I don't know if he's going to sit there and say, you're off the team, so to speak. Because this is not college. That type of stuff in college, a guy would get suspended for the first half of a game or something, or he wouldn't be allowed to play in one of the games. But these are grown men. You know what I mean? So there's only so much he can really do and say. And, I mean, if he really wants to make a statement, he can cut him. But, it's not like he twisted his own player's leg. So right. And if the NFL is weird like that, where teams will only really take dramatic stances like that if it affects their own team, kind of like how Earl Thomas was.
Right.
If Earl Thomas was notorious for twisting other people's legs, they wouldn't care. Because he's detrimental to their team, all of a sudden alarm bells are ringing. So I think the NFL should do something about it. That's the reason that they're there as the governing body, but they don't pay me. So
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of the news reports here, and it says that McCarthy came out and said that Tristan Hill had no intent to harm him, but I don't understand how you try and gator roll somebody and the intention is not there to harm somebody.
That's a load of baloney. We both know that.
Yeah, and Pete Carroll came out and said that, quote, "I was really pissed about that." And, Carroll has every right to be. That's your star running back. And, football is one of those sports where anything goes in between the whistles. Mm-hmm. To an extent, obviously. But when you get caught up in stuff like that, like it just gives a bad image to the sport, bad image to the brands. The Dallas Cowboys are arguably one of the biggest brands in the world.
Yep.
Not necessarily just sports teams, but biggest brands.
Yep.
And that's a bad look. That is a bad look.
Yep.
Speaking of bad looks,
I agree.
Speaking of bad looks, the time has come. We have to talk about positive COVID tests in the NFL. And me and you have talked a lot about this personally, on the golf course and through text messages and stuff like that. And we knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah. To make it straight, the Tennessee Titans had several positive COVID tests. I believe it was 8, like 3 or 5 players, and then whatever the remaining is.
3 players, 5 personnel.
So, and that's problematic. And they are confirmed positive tests according to multiple reports. So there's not a chance of it being a false positive. And I also read before we went on here that their facilities closed until Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to read the quote here.
They're not going to be able to prep for they'll be prepping, but they'll be prepping via Zoom like us.
Yeah.
For their game against, I believe it's the Steelers.
Steelers, yeah. So the NFL issued a statement here saying that, quote, "The Titans will suspend in-person club activities starting today," which was Sunday. Likewise, the Vikings, who are playing the Titans on Sunday, will also suspend in-person club activities. Both clubs are working closely with the NFL and the NFLPA, including our infectious diseases experts, to evaluate close contact, perform additional testing, and monitor developments. So this isn't just a big blow for the Titans, but for the Vikings as well, too. And I mean, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a COVID show, but we know how fast this thing can spread, right? So, especially with the NFL season being so short, and these players playing such close contact to each other, you want to nip it in the bud as fast as possible.
Yep. And this is, now push has come to shove officially. Everybody was talking about, we want football, we want sports, yada, yada, yada. And all the leagues, when everybody was sitting at home in phase 2 and sitting, essentially in the middle of lockdown, this is what the sports leagues were doing. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do. The NFL chose not to do a bubble. I understand why, because there's,
way too many people.
So many people. But this is officially, for lack of a better term, this is what they get, right? So now where do you go? How is your protocol really, right? They talked a lot about how safe training camp was, and they had the little bracelets that you have when you walk into the building, so you know how close you are, and all these different protocols and safety barriers and masks and these $100,000, almost $1 million fines for the coaches that don't wear masks.
John Gruden still does not care.
Yeah,
and like, I'll tell you what, man. That mask right there ain't gonna do nothing, man.
And now look, there's a full outbreak, and who knows how many more positive tests there are going to be. And pray that it doesn't actually transfer teams, right?
You just pray that it doesn't snowball.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you able to nip it in the butt? Exactly. And then from there, what do? I guess you're going to have to use their bye week to play games, and it's just there's a lot of other logistics that they need to take care of. Mm-hmm. But this is the first real test for the NFL, and there's a good chance that the Titans probably don't even play on Sunday. I'll be honest with you. I'd be surprised.
Very real possibility.
It's as bad as it sounds. I'd be surprised if they play on Sunday.
Yeah, and they obviously because of privacy concerns, you can't reveal who those 3 players are and who those personnel are. So it could be somebody on your practice roster. It could be Derrick Henry.
Yep.
So we're not going to know, and we saw it coming. I think everybody saw it coming. Hats off to the NBA and the NHL, Tampa Bay Lightning, who won the Stanley Cup last night. Hats off to them because they've done an incredible job with this whole bubble, and we just kind of knew it was going to happen.
Frankly, that's the way to go. If I'm being honest with you, we're not going to turn this into a COVID show because we got to get moving on stuff. But
exactly,
that's the way to go. You need a bubble. You need to say, okay, this is your barrier. Everybody in here is good. Don't leave, and we'll be able to do whatever we want. That's the only way you can do it. Because even look, the MLB tried to do it with a little bit of travel and whatnot, and they had multiple outbreaks. They had to play, doubleheader games that were 7 innings instead of 9, and like it wasn't a crapshoot in the MLB. Like, they still ended up having a decent season, and they dealt with it all right. But they had a few outbreaks, and it was getting nasty, especially in the beginning to the middle part of it.
Yeah, especially when the Miami Marlins were going to
Marlins, Cardinals,
exotic clubs.
Yeah, so let's just hope that they can nip it in the butt right now. If they have to take a week off, they take a week off, and then this is kind of a scare for everybody else, and then we can keep moving forward and have a successful
exactly. And if there's any updates too, check out FTFN Network, as we'll do our best to cover all the breaking news there. But to your point, we got to move on here. So Atlanta Falcons in the news again for the exact same reason. Man, they just cannot shake that 28-3. It's just synonymous with their brand now. They had a 26-10 lead. Trubisky benched to start the second half, and then old Nick Foles walks out rocking a visor. Yeah. There was he looked pretty nails out there. He kind of looked like RoboCop, if I'm being honest. He walks out, throws a pick, and then puts his heels in the dirt, goes to work, throws for 188 yards and 3 touchdowns. And me and you talked early when we were first starting the show about, what are the Bears going to do a quarterback? Are they going to go with Mitch Trubisky? Are they going to go with Nick Foles? But Matt Nagy came out and said that Foles is his guy. So, Nick, do you think he can kind of get it done here for Chicago?
And we talked about it on our first show when we were kind of doing a practice take that we didn't end up fully using. Mm-hmm. And I said that they should start Nick Foles. Because I think
you've been a believer in Nick Foles from the get-go. I will 100% give you credit on that.
Yeah, and I think he has the higher upside. If I'm being honest with you, you've seen 3 years of Trubisky, and you kind of put yourself in a catch-22 where if you start him and he plays well, then you have to pay him because he didn't pick up your 5th-year option, or you have to make a decision about paying him. And if you start him and he plays poorly, then you're screwed.
Breaking news, sorry. No positive tests for the Minnesota Vikings at the time of recording at 11:33 Eastern. So it looks like it's just been contained to the Tennessee Titans. So sorry, continue.
Very good. That's good to hear. If that can stay true, and I'm sure they'll keep testing. If that can stay true, that is very, very good. You quarantine Tennessee, tell them take a week off, whatever, and then get this thing back rolling. Yep. But back to the Bears and Falcons. I like the offense with Nick Foles a lot more than I like it with Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky just cannot throw the ball effectively downfield.
No.
He can't. And it was kind of the same things that people would say about Lamar Jackson, and he couldn't throw the ball downfield. But the difference between Lamar and Mitchell is that Lamar is electric with his feet. Mitchell's average.
Lamar is a dual threat player in every sense of the word.
Yes. And if you're not going to be able to throw the ball downfield, you have to be at least electric in some other way. And Mitchell Trubisky is frankly just not. He doesn't have the ability to push the ball downfield. He doesn't scare you as a defense. Because as a defense, the scariest thing when you're playing defense is not knowing what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you play deep or whether you play everybody up for the run and then they throw it deep, or vice versa, you play everything deep and then they run the ball on you. And not knowing, like last night when we saw the Chiefs with against the Ravens, it was so clear to me that Patrick Queen, who's a first-round rookie, and Malik Harrison's also a third-round rookie for the Ravens, were running around like chickens with their head cut off.
As a rookie, too, that's a tough matchup.
Even as a veteran, it was just so clear that they had no idea what was going on because the Chiefs were throwing everything at them.
Mm-hmm.
And with Mitchell Trubisky, he doesn't scare you in that way. It's okay. We have Allen Robinson and we have Jimmy Graham as well and Anthony Miller on the outside. We're going to have our 4, 5, 6 guys in the box.
And they lost Tariq Cohen out.
Man up on the outside, and everybody else is going to either play deep or we're going to blitz him. Because we're not scared of Trubisky. He's not going to hurt us.
Yeah,
and go through specific progressions across the field, and we'll push the ball downfield, and that's the most important thing. Because as a DB, if you're not even scared of getting beat deep, you're just going to cheat every underneath route.
Exactly. And they lost Tariq Cohen, too, so it's not like they can really respect the run game as well, too. So,
yep.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. I was wondering if there would be any of a chance that they pull like an Alabama type of situation and go with a 2-quarterback system, have Mitch Trubisky play the first half and then Nick Foles come off the bench for the second half.
That's not the NFL. The NFL college, they do whatever they do to win. The NFL has a lot more. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen in the NFL.
I also don't think that Mitchell Trubisky is Tua Tagovailoa.
Nick Foles gives you the best chance to win. That's what it comes down to.
And Nick Foles is the highest paid of the two as well, too. So,
a fourth for him.
And the problem with Chicago is that if they keep winning, they're gonna. I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen, but they're gonna play themselves out of a good quarterback selection.
Also true. But if you're winning, that means Nick Foles is probably playing well, so you would probably be okay with having him at least as a bridge quarterback for the next year or two.
Exactly. Moving on here from one blown lead to another that was kind of salvaged. Buffalo Bills gave me a big old heart attack. What?
It was fully salvaged.
They gave me a heart attack, man. I had heart palpitations. I had 911 on speed dial. It was bad. I remember texting you during the game. I was like, Bill's about to hang 40 on the Rams.
Yep.
And that didn't happen.
For everybody watching at home, if you don't know a lot about football or you know an average amount, even more than an average amount, it is a very long game.
How many times
have you noticed? All my personal friends know this. I don't talk during the game because it can go from so good to so bad. Last night you texted me in the Ravens game right off the bat when the Ravens had a great first drive and they ended up with a field goal. You're like, oh man, they're slicing and dicing this Kansas City defense. It's gonna be a long night for them. And as soon as you said that, I was like, there goes this. Like now we're gonna lose. That is everything you think is gonna happen. Flip it to the opposite, and that's what happens in an NFL game.
And then I texted you at the half when they were losing. I said, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, and I said no. But you know what? All jokes aside, the Ravens were continuing to run the ball away from winning that game because they were one possession down.
Yeah. And
it's just a long game. Like after all of that, they were literally one possession from winning the game.
Yeah, and speaking of one possession too, it's the same thing happened with Ellie and the Bills.
Yeah.
Josh Allen again has. I would say that Josh Allen is definitely in the MVP conversation so far in the season.
Really?
Don't give me that look. Absolutely. He has 33 touchdowns and three interceptions through his last 14 games.
That's a good stat.
It is a very good stat.
Too bad the MVP is not a last-year award.
He has also surpassed, I believe it was Jim Kelly's touchdown record through 3 games.
Listen, I like Josh Allen. Don't get me wrong. I know you think I hate him. I really don't. He has progressed very well. I have to give him – if I'm going to give Lamar his due credit for progressing, I have to give it to Josh Allen as well, because they were the 2 people – actually, this is quite funny. They were the 2 people that had the most question marks coming out of that, was a 2018 draft or 2017 draft.
Yeah, well, Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen were the highest prospects.
Baker Mayfield was supposed to be a lock. He's just a little bit short. Josh Rosen was the prodigy. And then Josh Allen had a cannon, but could he get some touch? And Lamar Jackson couldn't throw a football. And now there's 2 of those guys left.
Yeah.
Well, Baker's still around, but 2 of those guys effectively left. And they're 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, to be frank with you. And Josh Allen, and when Stephon Diggs went there, I didn't know how it would fit, but I really do like the fit of Stephon there.
Because Stephon has bloomed.
Yes. And it was one of those things where I remember when we went to the Bills game last year when they played the Ravens. I was never scared of the Bills offense because I knew if we got them in 3rd and 9, they weren't converting.
Very true.
Now I think they have the ability to convert because of Stephon Diggs, plus Gabriel Davis is also very good. They have a good set of offensive weapons. And Josh Allen has taken the next step. He's understood how to read defenses, where to put the ball, how to go through his progressions, little things like that make a solid NFL quarterback. And he's got there. And then he has an uber talented arm where he can throw it 90 yards if he wanted to.
Through 3 weeks, Josh Allen has accumulated over 1,000 passing yards. He's 100 behind Dak Prescott for the lead in the NFL.
Prescott should not be leading the league in the NFL.
Has 10 touchdowns to 1 interception, which is behind Russell Wilson by 4.
Yep. I still think Russell Wilson's in the lead. And
I would completely agree. And because of the blow up that the Bills had in the second half, and kind of Josh Allen kind of got back to his ways that we saw in Houston, where a quarterback got a face mask penalty.
Yep.
Because he was just trying to stiff arm everybody. And
to keep this short and quick, because I know we need to move on.
Yep.
Josh Allen of last year doesn't win that game.
I would 100% hammer down on that. 100% agree.
That is the progression that I like to see, and I have to give him due credit for that.
Yeah, they played. They played a great first half. Second half stopped bleeding a little bit, and then they had to lean on their best player to come and win that game. And speaking of not winning games, we have our first tie of the 2020 season. Yay! Good job, Eagles. Good job, Bengals. Nobody was watching that game. But both teams tie with a final score of 23-23. Carson Wentz looked like he was struggling again. 29-47 for 225 touchdown and a handful of picks. Joe Burrow, who has really kind of come into his own only 3 weeks into the season, had a pair of touchdowns, but was also sacked 8 different times. We talked about it last week. Is there ever a chance that the Eagles move on from Carson Wentz? And we're on our FaceTime call before this. Wentz has lost his fastball, man. I don't know if it's a mental thing. To me, when I watch him, it kind of looks like he's still scared of that knee. You don't really see him leaning into throws. He's a little timid. And if you're a pure pocket passer, that's not necessarily the worst thing, but he's kind of taken a fall from grace recently.
There's a couple of ways that you can look at this, and this has been very well covered on ESPN too. Like First Take does it a lot because Dan Orlovsky loves Carson Wentz and Max Kellerman hates him and yada, yada, yada.
Even A is just
There's a few ways that you can look at this because ultimately, if you're the Eagles, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. One, you can move Carson Wentz because you drafted Jalen Hurts, and if you think Jalen Hurts is the future, then you can move on from him, even though I don't think they will. Or you move on from the coach. Or not, maybe not even move on from the coach, but you get a new mind in there. And sitting there on Sunday, watching that game, it's hard for me to say that they need to move on from Carson Wentz, but he's also doing way too much. Because if you think of, well, first of all, they have a whole bunch of injuries, a whole slew of injuries. They just lost Dallas Goedert as well. They just have a slew of injuries, and it seems like the same thing every year for them. But when you sit and watch that game, Carson Wentz obviously is doing too much, and he's trying to force the ball downfield. And when Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level, he had a whole bunch of RPOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't.
They were the ones that brought the RPO into the. They were the ones that brought the RPO into the NFL game.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that recently. So it just doesn't make any sense to me what the Eagles are doing offensively in terms of schematics. And this is the biggest thing about the NFL. It's different than things like the NBA and whatnot. Like in the NBA, it's so obvious when guys are washed because basketball is basketball, no matter how you slice it. Different schemes, obviously, like if you play for Houston Rockets or whatever, that's all different. Bless you, by the way. That's all different.
I muted myself to be polite.
But in the NFL, guys can have a change of scenery and it can change their whole career.
I mean, look what happened
with
Nick Foles.
Yeah. Not even a change of scenery, but just a change of ideology, if you will. Because I'm just sitting there last night watching this Chiefs game, and I'm just thinking, what if Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia? Or what if Eric Bieniemy was the head coach in Philadelphia? You're telling me with those weapons all healthy, Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Alshon Jeffrey, Miles Sanders. You're telling me Eric Bieniemy couldn't draw up some stuff to get Carson Wentz back to not even elite, just above average and quality NFL quarterback? He's 26 or 27, a former MVP candidate. He has it in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. If I were the Eagles, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll put it on record right now. I would fire Doug Peterson if this continues.
Mm-hmm.
I'd fire Doug Peterson and hire Eric Bieniemy as my head coach.
I want to go back to the point you made about trying to trade Carson Wentz. The problem with that is just that he's making so much money and he's under contract until 2024.
Yes.
And I heard Orlovsky, it's Kellerman, say that they should trade him to the Colts.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And I don't know anybody who's going to take on that contract.
Honestly, when I first heard it, I didn't hate the idea.
No, I mean, you have 1 year out of Philip
Rivers. Because Philip Rivers is older. If you're not familiar with the situation, Philip Rivers is on a 1-year contract. Carson Wentz would come in and be the next, quarterback, whatever. And the main thing about the Colts is that Frank Reich is their head coach. Frank Reich is their head coach, and he was the Eagles' offensive coordinator when Carson Wentz was in their MVP season, or having that MVP season before he tore his ACL. So that fit makes a lot of sense, but Frank Reich is not the only one who can run RPOs or creative offense.
No, Sean McDermott's done it with Buffalo.
Yeah, so there's a lot that can be done. I think Doug Peterson needs to figure it out on the offensive end, though, because I know they're hurt. I get it, but they just seem very stagnant on offense.
They're kind of treading water at this point.
Yes, and Carson Wentz is trying to force things, and he's missing layups. Like, I was watching the game, and Miles Sanders ran like a little bit of a wheel route out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. Or I think it might have been lined up a receiver, actually. But nonetheless, he stacked his DB, and he was gone pretty much. And Carson Wentz missed him by like 5 yards.
Yeah.
That type of stuff is just unacceptable. As an NFL quarterback that's getting paid that kind of money too, it's unacceptable. And when you are seen as a QB1, undisputed QB1, you're getting paid that top dollar, injuries and whatnot are not an excuse for you. No. You have to be able to play better. You have to play above your circumstances. If your top receiver is down, you need to be able to play above it. And that's what you need to be able to win some games. And they are not doing that right now.
Speaking of winning and losing games, again, I swear we have some really good segues here.
We do.
We're gonna rank or say who our best 0-3 team is and who the worst 3-0 team is. So for my best 0-3 team, I took the Houston Texans. Look, whoever made the Houston Texans schedule they deserve some jail time because that was cruel. That was cruel. They had the Chiefs and they had the Ravens.
Yep. And the Steelers.
And the Steelers.
Yep.
That is a tough start. That is an especially tough start when you don't have your number one wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, who's with the Cardinals now, who had kind of side topic. Hopkins had an interesting day with Jeff Okudah. But getting back to here, I mean, the Houston Texans, I still don't understand that trade, man. Bill O'Brien, the GM, has made it harder for Bill O'Brien, the head coach, to win football games. I don't understand the reasoning behind that trade, and it's cost them immensely. And we've kind of talked about even in fantasy, like you're 0-3 in fantasy right now. If you go 0-4, that's tough sledding.
Yep. That's 25% basically of the NFL schedule.
Exactly, and to the Texans' point, if you go 0-4, what do you have to play for?
Yep.
That's tough.
Texans from here on out. They need to win. They need to win bad.
And for my worst 0-3 team, I took the Chicago Bears. They have all of their games. So I looked at their points for points against differential. They have only outscored their opponents by 8 points.
Yeah.
That is quite the polar opposite of a potent offense.
Yeah, and they have some questions at quarterback that we just went through, but
yeah,
I agree with those. So for my picks for my best 0-3 team, I took the Atlanta Falcons. And I know we slandered them for the last 2 weeks, but frankly, they should be at least 2-1. They should have beat Dallas handedly.
Yep.
They should have beat the Bears handedly. They have an electric offense. They just missed Julio Jones yesterday with a hamstring. They have a decent defense. They just need to be able to close games. They are so uber talented. They have so much going for them. They have probably the best offense in the NFL, honestly. Outside of the Chiefs, maybe, because they are just like, if you need points in about 30 seconds, the Atlanta Falcons can do that for you. It's ridiculous what they're doing on the football field. But they just need to learn how to close games. Honestly, that is truly, they need to be a complete football team, and that means offense, defense, and special teams. Excuse me, not just offense. So if they can figure that out, I still think they can sneak into the playoffs, but we'll see if they can figure that out. My worst 3-0 team is the Tennessee Titans. Now, I like the Titans, and I'm not salty about the playoffs last year with the Ravens, so I truly do mean this. But their schedule has been the Broncos, Jaguars, and Vikings. And, I mean, on Sunday, against the Vikings, the Titans kicked 6 field goals, I believe it was. They scored, I think it was 2 touchdowns and 6 field goals.
Gostkowski had like 25 fantasy points.
Yeah. So, and they won 3 games by combined 6 points over the Broncos, Jaguars, and Vikings. I don't love them. They'll probably end up making the playoffs because their division is not great. And then again, who knows? If Derrick Henry goes on another tear, then they might shock the world again. But they just don't do anything for me. So they're my worst 3-0 team. They're still pretty good. And they're still a solid team because they're 3-0. But I don't love them. I'll be honest with you. I don't love them.
Yeah, I mean they kind of play a boring brand of football.
Yes.
I mean Ryan Tannehill, he's not necessarily a household name at quarterback, but
yes.
We're gonna move on to our hero and zero segment here. So for my hero of the week, I took Nick Foles. That one I really don't need to explain any further, just because big Richard Nick walks on the field and just starts throwing dots all over that. For my hero, I actually took your MVP, early MVP candidate in Kyler Murray. 3 interceptions against the Detroit Lions. And they lost on a last-minute field goal. Much, much closer game than I expected. My brother, who is a huge, huge Lions fan, there were tears of joy. There were tears of joy. It was an emotional night for us too.
Lions. We spent a lot of time last week slandering them. That was a huge win for them. They needed that.
Statement win.
Yeah.
Statement win. But he was also like, I'm happy that we won, but I'm also really mad that we lost because it means that Matt Patricia still has a job.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Kyler Murray throwing 3 picks on the day is definitely not good for his MVP season. But I'll pass it over to you to get yours done here too.
My hero of the week is Andy Reid, and I've talked a lot about Eric Bieniemy. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in football. Andy Reid is just up there with him, and he takes just as much credit for all the offense and schematics that happen with the Kansas City Chiefs as anybody. Because, listen, in a basic offensive system, Kansas City is lethal. In an Andy Reid-led offensive system where they have like quad stacks and guys running back and forth and doing all kinds of random stuff,
pitching it to the fullback,
impossible to stop. Like you put Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and all these different guys in a regular offensive system, and they're still hard to stop with Patrick Mahomes. And then you put them in that, I don't even know how to describe it, just innovative to another level of offense, and they take it to another level. So all credit to Andy Reid. They needed to get going because they didn't have a great start to the season so far, and I think Andy Reid did that.
Yeah,
And
that pitch to that fullback, I think it's in the red zone.
So clever.
Who draws that up?
Little things like that. And I said our linebackers were running around like chicken with the head cut off, and I don't blame them because there's a lot to take in. My zero of the week is Ezekiel Elliott. If the Cowboys want to make the playoffs and win games in the playoffs, Zeke needs to be their best player.
Yep.
And Dak Prescott threw it, I think it was like 57 times or something like that. And you said a couple minutes ago that he leads the NFL in passing. There's no way on God's green earth that Dak Prescott should be leading the NFL in passing.
As a lot of that is panic time throwing too.
You are paying your running back $90 million. You spent how much money and how many first round picks on your offensive line? Run the bleeping ball. 14 carries for 34 yards. He didn't have a great day at all, but you need to run the ball. For God's sakes, he has a tattoo that says "Feed me."
Yeah.
Him. Like, what do you want from the guy? Just give him the ball. They need to be more consistent running the ball. They need to hammer the ball. Like, they need to run the ball. Dak Prescott should not throw the ball more than 35 times in a game.
I agree.
They need to run the ball. And that makes your receivers more potent.
Yeah, and it's not like Seattle's defense is what they used to be.
Exactly. And I understand guys score points quickly, and it's what happens with Kansas City. You lose your identity and whatnot, but you need to stay calm, run the ball, because that's how you score your points, and that's how you score your points best. Because Zeke is probably the best running back in the NFL. If not, then he's top like 3 or 4. So
I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Nick, it's your favorite part of the show where we preview the Thursday night game.
I don't know who. Yeah, you said it last week. I don't know who designed these Thursday night games, and I didn't really agree with you last time. But boy, how are you gonna give me Miami and Jacksonville,
and then
Denver and the Jets?
Yeah, if I walked into somebody's, if these games were food, and I walked into their house on Thanksgiving and I saw these 2 platters on the table, I'm getting takeout on the way home.
Yes.
These aren't going to do it for me. Like, I'm still hungry.
Broncos and Jets. And I understand because the Broncos are supposed to be a youth up and coming, and I still want to see Jerry Jeudy. I'm actually curious. I haven't really been able to see
is what the kids say, a baller. He's quite good at the football.
He is good. He is very good. So I'm interested to see him. Obviously, Drew Lock's hurt, so we'll get Jeff Driscoll. And God, can somebody please help Sam Darnold? Please, somebody just get it. Like, that guy needs a tea and a blanket.
Yeah, he needs
some help, please. An offensive line outside of Mekhi Becton.
There's
a couple guys who can catch the ball, maybe.
Somebody get him a football team because this one is broken.
Somebody. Oh God, you want to talk about tough sledding? That brother is set up for failure.
3 TDs, 4 interceptions.
Yeah, 2 of those are pick sixes.
Yeah,
I can confirm.
Yeah.
So,
if I'm a New Jersey Jets fan, and I'm still calling them New Jersey Jets because there's only one team in New York. If I'm a Jets fan, what do I have to watch anymore, man?
Yeah.
Like and that's coming from a fan's perspective. Imagine putting your body on the line every week for this franchise.
Well, they can play for money, so they can find different things to play for. But at least
Donald's playing for
Daniel Jones, and you're building, and you have Saquon. You know he's going to come back eventually, and you have some playmakers here and there. Like, the Giants are at least doing a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Jets, it's one of those things where you get the pick, like a pick in the draft, and you can take whoever the hell you want because you have so many holes to fill.
I thought C.J. Mosley was going to do some great things with the Jets.
I love that guy. He was one of my favorite players for the Ravens, and this is so typical. I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I haven't thought about him in a while. This is so typical of players in the NFL. They leave. This is what I'm talking about, leaving teams and having guys that are really important to different systems. And they can either revive their career in a different system or just lose it all. There are so many players that leave the Ravens system and get paid somewhere else and then fall off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens so often. The only guy who I can think of off the top of my head currently that hasn't happened to is the Darius Smith. When he's with Green Bay now, he got the bag from the Packers, and he's played fantastic there. Yeah, he's played fantastic there. But everybody else, like C.J. Mosley, we wanted to re-sign him really bad. He got paid like $90 million by the Jets and hasn't done squat. He hasn't done squat. So that's just a little tangent that I've been saying for years. But you're right. Somebody's got to lead that defense. They don't have Jamal Adams anymore.
Yeah, it just looks like everybody's.
They don't have Muhammad Wilkerson. Like, they don't have Leonard Williams. Everybody that they drafted that they wanted to build their defense around is gone.
I think the only thing I think about when I think about the Jets now is Quentin Williams and his post-draft interview when he sneezes and blesses himself. Bless you. Thank you. Moving on to our underdog, most entertaining game of the week. Again, if you look at the schedule, we were kind of looking at the schedule before, and there's been a big dump off from week 2 to week 3 to week 4. But I picked my most entertaining game of the week as the Patriots and the Chiefs. Cam Newton's still doing really good things with the Patriots. I'm absolutely terrified to lose sleep over it. And the Kansas City Chiefs coming off a big win against the Baltimore Ravens. Again, I don't think I need to hammer down the significance and the electricness of this game.
My pick for that is the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Aaron Rodgers revenge tour, because Aaron Rodgers is.
You've been staying on that.
Aaron Rodgers is. Are you watching football? The same football that I'm watching? Aaron Rodgers is just walking the ball down to his receivers and then letting them run with it. It's just ridiculous the stuff that he's doing. And they still have a good run game with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. Like, the Packers are for real, man. Mm-hmm. They're going to win 12, 13 games this year. And their defense is
they're going to win 12 and 13 games and not have drafted a wide receiver in the deepest wide receiver class we have ever seen.
And maybe it's because they like the guys that they had. Who knows? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Alan Lazard, who knows? Who truly knows why they didn't? But they are lighting it up. And I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game, so I'm excited to watch it. It's a Monday night game. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be another entertaining one.
Yeah, moving on to our underdog picks of the week, I have the Tennessee Titans. That's a little fluid now just because we don't really know what's going on with the Titans situation. Yep. But I picked them to beat the Steelers. Man, who knows? To your point, who knows if that game even happens? I don't know how you can – I mean, it's not like you get cured in 6 days. So we'll see if that game is in – it hangs in the balance right now. We don't even know if it's going to happen. But if it does, I could see Tennessee just kind of playing their old boring football and grinding out like a last-minute field goal win against the Steelers.
Yep. I can also agree with that. I think Tennessee will for the football purists, it's very beautiful. For everybody else, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
They run the ball, play good defense, and play action pass down the field. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I can see this being like a 13-10 win or like a 20.
I can see that.
Yeah.
For sure. I'd hammer the under if I were a betting man.
Yeah.
My pick is Bears over Colts.
If you were a betting man.
I'm not. But my pick is Bears over Colts. I think Nick Foles is going to be able to electrify the Chicago offense because they have some playmakers. Jimmy Graham's there. Mm-hmm. Allen Robinson's there. Anthony Miller's there. Like they have David Montgomery's there. They have some decent playmakers. They have a decent offensive line. I think Nick Foles can make it work. The Colts don't scare the living, you know what out of me. Mm-hmm. But they're solid. Their defense is pretty good. I love Darius Leonard. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL.
Their offense has been very, very spotty. I mean, T.Y. Hilton is.
The Bears have a decent defense too. So I'll take my chances with the Bears, and I think they'll at least cover, if not win this completely outright.
Yeah, I mean, T.Y. Hilton's been a little quiet, but I still love Quentin Nelson up front throwing pancakes everywhere for Sunday morning brunch, and Jonathan Taylor kind of wiggling his way through there on his way to 75-plus yards. But yeah, that's the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Click like if you liked it. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Let us know what you think of the show in the comments. I'd love to interact with you guys. Make sure you follow us on social at FTFN Network. I'm at the Hodawan. Again, please don't judge me. He is at Gardner_Nick. Follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/FTFN and YouTube, which you are currently watching at FTFN Network. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.